The story my family carries is not written in any book, but it lives in silences, in unfinished sentences, and in memories that refuse to die. My grandfather was mute. He could not speak a single word, but that never meant he was silent. His eyes spoke, his hands spoke, and sometimes his silence was louder than any scream. People in the village used to underestimate him because of his disability, but those who really knew him understood that he observed everything deeply. Nothing escaped his notice. My father worked in the UK. For years, he lived far from home, sending money, letters, and dreams back to us. His absence shaped our family in strange ways. We learned patience early. We learned that love does not always sit at the same table. Sometimes it lives thousands of miles away and still keeps a family standing. Time passed. My elder brother got married. It was supposed to be a happy chapter, a new beginning for the family. Wedding celebrations came and went, laughter filled the house, and relatives gathered from different places. My grandfather, though quiet as always, seemed thoughtful during those days. He smiled, but his eyes carried something heavy, something unspoken. After the wedding, my grandfather went to my brother's-in-law's house. It was a formal visit, full of tradition and respect. Everything seemed normal at first. People welcomed him warmly. He sat calmly, observing faces, listening without words, as he always did. Then it happened. The moment my grandfather saw my brother's mother-in-law, his face changed. His body stiffened, his hands trembled. Before anyone could understand what was happening, he collapsed. He had fainted right there. Panic spread through the room. Water was sprinkled on his face. People called his name loudly, forgetting for a moment that he could not hear or respond with words. When he finally regained consciousness, he looked frightened, shaken, as if he had just seen a ghost from his past. The visit ended abruptly. My grandfather insisted on returning home immediately. The entire way back, he remained restless. His eyes were wide open, staring into nothing, as if a door to a buried memory had suddenly been forced open. Back home, he did something unusual. He called my father. For a man who could not speak, calling someone was not a simple act. He communicated through gestures, expressions, and by writing broken words with trembling hands. He insisted that my father be contacted immediately in the UK. The urgency in his behavior scared everyone. When my father finally spoke to him through signs and writing, the truth began to surface, slowly, painfully. A memory from 25 years ago came back to life. Long before my brother's marriage, long before my father left for the UK, there had been a terrible incident. A crime, an injustice so deep that it destroyed lives. My grandfather had witnessed it all, silently, helplessly. He had recognized my brother's mother-in-law. She was connected to that incident. 25 years ago, my grandfather had 2 more sons. My uncles, young men full of life, hopes, and plans. They are no longer in this world. Their deaths were never fully explained. At the time, people called it fate, an accident, a tragedy that no one wanted to question too deeply. But my grandfather had known. Being mute, he could not shout for justice. He could not go to the authorities and explain everything clearly. His silence was not by choice, it was forced upon him. And so, the truth was buried with him, locked inside his memory for decades. Seeing that woman after 25 years ripped the lock open, all the pain he had suppressed came rushing back at once. The faces of his lost sons. The night of the incident. The fear, the helplessness, the guilt of surviving when his children did not. For years, he had lived with that burden, carrying it alone. My father listened in shock. The distance between the UK and our home suddenly felt meaningless. The past had followed us into the present, into a marriage that was meant to bring happiness. The family was shaken. Questions filled the air. How could such a connection exist? How could fate be so cruel, bringing the victim's family and the shadow of the past into one relationship? My grandfather's health declined after that day. He became quieter than before, if that was even possible. Sometimes, late at night, he would wake up sweating, his eyes full of terror, reliving moments no one else could hear or fully understand. This story is not about revenge. It is not about accusations proven or denied. It is about how the past never truly dies. It waits, it hides, and sometimes, it returns when you least expect it, through a face, a glance, a single moment. It is also about the pain of those who cannot speak. My grandfather's muteness did not protect him from suffering, it multiplied it. Imagine knowing the truth and being unable to tell it in time. Imagine watching injustice happen and having no voice to stop it. Families often believe that time heals everything. But some wounds do not heal. They only go quiet. My father still lives with the weight of that revelation. My brother lives with a marriage tied to a history he never chose. And my grandfather lived his last years haunted by memories he could never fully release. This is a reminder that every family has secrets. Some are small, some are life-shattering, and sometimes, the most dangerous secrets are carried by those who have no voice, because when the truth finally comes out, it comes like a storm. If this story teaches anything, it is this: never underestimate silence. Never assume that what is forgotten is forgiven. And never believe that the past cannot find its way back into your life. Because sometimes, one look is enough to bring back 25 years of buried truth. After my grandfather revealed the truth to my father, nothing in our family remained the same. Even though the words were few and broken, the meaning behind them was devastatingly clear. The past that everyone thought was buried had never really gone away. It had only been waiting for the right moment to resurface. My father could not sleep that night in the UK. Time zones separated us, but fear erased all distance. He kept replaying my grandfather's gestures, the shaky handwriting, the way his hands trembled while pointing to old memories. My father had grown up watching his own brothers disappear from his life one by one, never truly knowing why. As a child, he had accepted the explanations given by elders: destiny, bad luck, God's will. But now, those explanations felt like lies told to protect someone else, not the truth meant to heal a family. Back home, my grandfather became obsessed with remembering. He would sit for hours, staring at the same corner of the room, as if a screen was playing scenes from the past only he could see. Sometimes he would take out old photographs, faded, torn at the edges, and gently touch the faces of his lost sons. His fingers moved slowly, as if he was afraid they might disappear again. My grandmother had passed away years ago, but in those days, it felt like my grandfather was talking to her in silence. He would look at the empty space beside him, his lips moving without sound, his eyes filling with tears. The weight of 25 years pressed down on him all at once. My brother, caught in the middle of this storm, struggled to understand his place. His marriage had just begun. He loved his wife, and she had done nothing wrong. Yet, the shadow of her family's past now hung over him like a curse. He felt torn between loyalty to his blood and commitment to his future. No one had prepared him for such a conflict. The atmosphere in our house changed. Conversations became cautious. Laughter felt forced. Everyone walked carefully around my grandfather, afraid that one wrong word or gesture might trigger another collapse. Fear settled into the walls like dampness, impossible to ignore. My father decided to return from the UK. When he finally came home, his hair seemed grayer than before, his face heavier. Years of working abroad had taught him endurance, but this was different. This was not about money or survival. This was about unfinished grief. The moment my father sat in front of my grandfather, something broke. My grandfather held his son's hands tightly, as if afraid that letting go would erase the truth again. Tears rolled down his cheeks silently, but his grip spoke volumes. My father cried openly, for the brothers he lost, for the father who suffered alone, and for the truth that came too late. Over the next few days, pieces of the past slowly came together. Through gestures, drawings, and fragments of writing, my grandfather explained what he had witnessed 25 years ago. It was not a single moment, but a chain of events: betrayal, fear, and a system that favored the powerful and silenced the weak. He had tried to warn people back then. He had tried to point fingers, to show signs, to explain through the limited means he had. But no one listened. Some did not want to understand. Others were too afraid. In the end, silence won. The woman he saw at my brother's-in-law's house was not just a stranger from the past. She represented everything that had been taken from him: his sons, his peace, his faith in justice. Seeing her living a normal life, smiling, laughing, attending weddings, shattered the illusion that time had balanced the scales. My father faced a painful question: what now? The law could do nothing after so many years. Evidence was gone. Witnesses were dead or silent. The truth, though real, had no official place to stand. Seeking revenge would only destroy more lives. Staying silent felt like betraying the dead. In the end, my father chose a different path. He chose to acknowledge the truth within the family, even if the world would never hear it. He sat my brother down and told him everything. Not to poison his marriage, but to give him the right to know the reality he was now connected to. My brother listened quietly. When my father finished, he said nothing for a long time. Then he simply said that the sins of the past should not be passed on to the innocent of the present. But his eyes revealed the pain he would carry forever. My grandfather's health continued to decline. Doctors said his heart was weak, but we all knew it was not just his heart, it was his memories. The human body can survive many things, but suppressed grief has its own way of destroying a person from within. One evening, my grandfather called all of us to sit near him. He looked at each face carefully, one by one. Then he placed his hand on his chest and closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, there was a strange calm in them, as if he had finally let go of something he had carried for too long. That night, he passed away in his sleep. At his funeral, people spoke about his patience, his simplicity, his quiet nature. Few knew the storm he had lived with. Few understood that his silence was not emptiness, but a prison. After his death, the house felt emptier than ever. Not because he was gone, but because his untold pain had finally found rest, leaving us behind to deal with its echoes. Years have passed since then, but the story still lives within us. It changed how we see relationships, how we judge people, how we understand silence. We learned that, not every smile hides innocence, and not every quiet person lacks a story. This is not just a family tragedy. It is a reminder of how easily truth can be buried when the right voices are missing. How injustice survives when silence is forced upon the vulnerable. And how the past, no matter how old, can return in the most unexpected ways. Some stories are not meant to end with closure. They exist to warn, to teach, and to remind us that listening, truly listening, can change everything. Because sometimes, the loudest truth is the one that was never spoken.